fans, welcome back to Room 237, and Christmas is finally over. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas. So before I get to this review, I guess I'll use this as a sort of Christmas haul or DVD update. It's not everything is here yet because, as you all know, shipping has been crazy this year. So not everything I've got recently is going to be in this, but there will be a bigger movie update once they all come in. Also, if anyone has purchased a movie off of trashpalace.com, let me know how your experience was with that, because I just put in a huge order of Giallo films from that website. Seems to be legit, but I'm just curious as to what anyone else's experience was like. So first off, I thought this was really awesome. It's a vial of wood chips, but it is actually from the Evil Dead 2 cabin. Yes, I know that went under a deconstruction very recently, and a lot of stuff was salvaged. So my brother got me this vial of cabin wood chips. So I think that's very cool. One of my top 5 favorite films. That's awesome. And then my parents got me this plaque with film cells, authentic 1931 film cells of Dracula. Huge fan of the 1931 film. This is my favorite version of Dracula, my favorite vampire, which also goes along with this shirt that my girlfriend got me. Love Bela Lugosi. Which she also got me this picture of Caesar from War for the Planet of the Apes, my favorite film of the reboot trilogy, signed by Andy Serkis with the certificate of authenticity. It's laminated, but I'm still going to get a frame for it. Now, as for films, I got this, which I have watched already, but I'm going to watch it again and then do a review of it. The Criterion of Brian De Palma's Blowout. I've seen many people call this a Giallo. It's not. It's his follow-up to Dress to Kill, which is also not a Giallo, but this was a wonderful film. This is now one of my favorite Brian De Palma films. This was awesome. And then she also got me the Alberto Lenzi Carol Baker Complete Giallo Collection. All 4 films that they collaborated on, which was Orgasmo, So Sweet, So Perverse, A Quiet Place to Kill, and Knife of Ice. I will be getting to all of these as well. Unfortunately, An Ideal Place to Kill has not arrived yet, and the ones I ordered off Trash Palace, which I ordered 10 Gialli, so I'll save that for when they come in. But she also ordered me this, which came in today, and it is another Umberto Lenzi film, Gatti Rossi in un labirinto di vetro, if I pronounce that correctly, which translates to Red Cats in a Glass Maze, or simply known and better known as Eyeball, this is the cover it comes from. This is the 88 Films release, which does say Region 2, but it played on my PS4 just fine. In fact, I'm reading everywhere that it works as a region-free Blu-ray. And that's what this review is going to be. So, sorry it took me almost 5 minutes to get through all that, but I had a very good Christmas. I hope you all did too. So, Eyeball is the 1975 Giallo by Umberto Lenzi, which is a director I've become very fond of this last Italian marathon. Prior to that, I had only seen Nightmare City, and then after getting into the marathon, I saw Spasmo, 7 Bloodstained Orchids, Hitcher in the Dark. I've seen a number of his films. I believe this was his last Giallo film. He never returned to it, even though he would do horror films afterward and all throughout the 80s. But I guess he did write some gialli novels later on in life. So that's interesting. But it was written by Lindsay and Felix Tussle. Stars John Richardson, who people might recognize from Torso. That's what I immediately recognized him from. He was also, just as far as horror and Giallo, he was also in Reflections in Black, which I would like to see. 9 Guests for a Crime, which is one I did order from Trash Palace. Murder Obsession, which I have reviewed. And the horror film The Church by Lamberto Bava. It also stars Martine Brochard, who was also in Murder Obsession. Ines Pellegrini, Myrta Miller, George Rigaud, Raph Baldassare, which that name sounds familiar. I'm just going to see what else he was in. I know he was in something else I saw because that name does look very familiar. Maybe not, but he has a huge filmography nonetheless. Yeah, the more I look, even through the 70s, nothing. Alright, I guess not. Sylvia Solar and Danielle Vargas. Sorry, had a hard time saying that. And the music by Bruno Nicolai and cinematography by Antonio Milan. So right off the bat, almost 7 minutes in, I would have to say this was one of my favorite Alberto Lenzi Gialli. I don't remember too much from Seven Bloodstained Orchids. I did enjoy it. I also really enjoyed Spasmo, but I really enjoyed this. And this was kind of at a period where Gialli was pushed out of, being #1 popular, and Polizia Teshki had kind of replaced it. And it went through this phase where Giallo was kind of a mixture of what America was doing with slashers, the sort of proto-slasher. At least in between the post-Crystal Plumage, pre-Tenebrae era, that sort of awkward era for Gialli, also known as Post-Argento, pre-Argento. You had Eyeball, Autopsy, Torso, that were all doing more slashery type stuff. And I would say this one, even though it does have foreigners in another country, it does go after a certain group of people. Like, it's not someone all over the city. That tends to happen with Giallo. Like, it takes place in Barcelona, covers quite a few locations in Barcelona. This group of American tourists. And also the fact that it's a group of tourists kind of gives it that slasher feel. And the killer starts out with red gloves and kills with a dagger, but eventually dons a red rain poncho. Kind of makes it look like Alice, Sweet Alice, even though this came out a year prior to that. But wears the poncho backwards, so the hood covers the face. And it has kind of an Agatha Christie style narrative to it, or plot devices, because as the film goes on, people within the tour group start accusing each other, becoming more paranoid of each other. So it has that Agatha Christie feel to it, which I'm always a fan of. Yeah, I really enjoyed this film. The score, even though I liked the music, I would say this isn't as strong as... Well, I would say I like Nikolai's music in this more than Strip Nude for Your Killer, but there's one piece in Strip Nude for Your Killer that I cannot find anywhere. In this, when we first are at that strip club and there's the red lights, I love that piece of music, but I can't find it anywhere. There's really only 2 pieces of music that keeps popping up in this, one of them almost constantly. And I don't know why, but the opening of that piece really reminded me of like the main theme in Blood-Sucking Freaks from Trauma. just made me think of it. Now, Martine Brochard is one of the patrons of this tour group. And after the first victim is killed and the eyeball is extracted, she's approached by John Richardson's character. Is it Mark Burton? Or Bertine Burton? Yeah, Burton. Brochard plays Paulette. John Richardson plays Mark. He approaches her. He's not part of the group, but he's from the same area. They're all from Burlington, Vermont. And, saying he wanted to see her. He's there on business, but she's his secretary. He wanted to see her again. And he is married. He's married to a woman named Alma, who the film opens up with. And it makes her look kind of dazed and confused, but she's about to get on a plane. And then we don't see her again throughout the whole film. And I think the movie is, well, I'm not going to say that because that would give it away, but this movie is full of red herrings. This has one of the most red herring filled Gialli I've seen in quite a while. And I think that's supposed to help the paranoia that all these characters are feeling. For instance, every kill that happens, the one Reverend Bronson, great name, he pops up everywhere. Every time there's a kill, no matter where it is, he's there. There's this weird scene where it's a guy and his daughter, or a guy and his granddaughter. He's like shaving, but then he stops and he stands over his granddaughter or daughter. Jenny is her name. With his straight razor, he's just like looking at her. And then that's it. Someone knocks on the door saying, hey, someone else was killed. The tour guide has a thing for playing pranks on Peggy or Jenny. There's a Peggy and a Jenny. Peggy is the second victim. Like the wind-up mouse or the wind-up spider. He loves pulling these scare pranks on her. I think that... But then I thought, oh, that's the character we're supposed to look at as being kind of suspicious. But everyone is suspicious in this film. There's this married couple that's part of the group where the husband has, looks like he's been punched. He's got scratches on his hand. He says that the girl that had just been murdered did that to him when he was trying to, he was trying to be nice and kind of trying to lead her away from something. All the while, Mark, who explains to Paulette that his wife is a little unstable, a little bit jealous. He's planning on divorcing her, but finds out she's in Barcelona as well. And he believes she's the one behind all the killings. So pretty much it's all these tourists going from hotel to hotel, checking out all the different sites. Even when one of them gets killed, they carry on the next day like nothing ever happened. And it's Mark trying to find his wife Alma, but is never able to. And there's these two inspectors. There's Inspector Tudela and Lara, which I can't click on the actor who plays Inspector Lara, which is Jose Maria Blanco. He looked like the guy. Of course, this was 24 years prior. But if anyone knows, I thought he was the guy that Nicole Kidman dances with in the beginning of Eyes Wide Shut. Could be wrong. But yeah, it reminds me of Seven because Tudela, it's his final week before retirement, and then he's got to solve this case. But he's kind of old school detective, while Lara is more advanced, relies on scientific advancements to solve the case. And I mean, there's not a whole lot that they do, but it's not like they're totally inept. But it does more so follow Mark trying to find his wife. And as the movie goes on, we do get more backstory of his wife and why he might suspect that she's the killer. that's pretty much it. Or at least I can say before spoilers. Now, there is some nice stylish shots. It's not as stylish as some of his other films. Like the second victim, two members of the tour group they're at this amusement park. They decide to go through this like fun house or house of horrors. They get these tram cars. As she's being stabbed, we see the hand come down. It shows one of the scary decorations every time. It shows that there's a stabbing taking place. I thought that was neat, especially with all the colors that are in there. And I think it's not until the fourth victim do we actually see some blood. I mean, it's more so implied, or there's, quick cuts every time there's a stab to show like a reaction or something. But we don't really see a lot of the blood and gore up until the fourth victim, who's a photographer who is also dating her model. What was her name? Lisa, played by Myrta Miller, who I don't recognize anything else. She was in Count Dracula's Great Loves, which is a film I've heard of. She's the photographer, and Naima Levin, played by Ines Pellegrini, is her model/lover. Which, another thing to say, the black character lives. That's one thing I'll say before spoilers. Oh, she was in Sallow. Okay. And she was also in Arabian Nights, both by Pasolini. So that's cool. But when Lisa, the photographer, is killed, I mean, we see the stabs, we see the throat getting slit. It's a pretty vicious kill. But this is also when the killer starts donning the red poncho. Because they get to this one tourist site where it's raining, so they all get ponchos. There is some silly things, like at one point, Inspector Tudela has someone try on a poncho to see if it fits. I think ponchos are one size fits all, at least to a certain extent, so I thought that was kind of silly. But yeah, not too much else to say other than spoilers, but one other thing I noticed is the killer is very efficient at first, but then when it dons the red poncho and we actually see the killer other than just its hands with the dagger, that's when the killer gets sloppy, or there's always someone around to scream and to stop or startle the killer. I had my suspicions. I wasn't surprised by who the killer was. I was surprised by the motive, but there were several times where I thought, okay, that probably is the killer. I thought it was going to have more of a Slaughter Hotel ending, which there's a number of Gialli that has, that kind of revelation. But it didn't quite go that way. And I'll just save the rest for spoilers. But yeah, this movie's kind of hard to find. I think the only real way you can find it that I know of is the 88 Films Blu-ray. But I highly recommend it. I haven't checked it out yet, but it does have a 80-minute documentary on Umberto Lenzi, his whole career. So I'll definitely check that out. But so far, from what I've seen of Umberto Lenzi's Giallo films, this is one of my favorites. I still have to see these four and An Ideal Place to Kill, but I thought this was a very good one. I really liked Eyeball. So with that, I'm going to get to spoilers. So the inspectors are pretty gung-ho that it is Mark who's the killer. because they're unable to find his wife Alma. He actually hasn't seen Alma the entire time either. He's just, he got a telegram saying she was at this one hotel. He went there. He found a picture of them. He found the bloody knife, which he picked up, and proof that she was there. Also, he's hiding a secret, which we get these flashbacks to. There was a murder of someone named Terry back in their hometown of Burlington, who I think he said was his doctor's daughter, or it was a doctor of someone he knew, a daughter of someone he knew. But the police are convinced it's him, and he's convinced it's Alma. He decides to take Paulette, because I don't even think Paulette knew much about the killing that he suspected Alma being involved in. Because he came home one day and she was passed out or fainted on the back lawn with the bloody dagger in her hand. It's been a while since I reviewed a Giallo, so bear with me. But actually, at one point, they take in the tour guide, but they let him go. Then they take in Mark. He has to prove that he wasn't having any kind of relations with the victim back home. Paulette gives him an alibi for that. But then the characters who are talking amongst each other, the Reverend, who pops up everywhere, tells the model, go through Lisa's things. Maybe there's something there that you'll find that shows the identity of the killer. Which, interestingly enough, Lisa did not have her eye taken out. Which they do kind of talk about, like they say, maybe the killer was startled or whatever. But she's not the only one to not have her eye taken out. Because at the end, when the police know who the killer is, and the model is going to look for Father Bronson at a castle, it seems like, okay, they're going to catch the killer, and the climax is building up. The Reverend is at the castle. He has this picture he keeps taking out to look at, and this young girl picks, he drops it, this young girl picks it up, and it's like, hey, is this your picture? And he picks it up, and then he's like entranced by her and her eyes, saying like, you have the same eyes of someone who was dear to me. This girl here in the picture, which I think was the girl that was killed back home. It's really setting it up like he's the killer. Because they've also established that all the victims have the same colored eye, this sort of gray-blue colored iris. And there's also a part where when Mark is in the inspector's office, one of the forensic guys comes in with the dagger and says, the killer must have stabbed like this. Get a little montage of Alma using her left hand, and he's like, wait a minute. She's left-handed. There's no way she could have stabbed these women with her right hand, which means when I came home and that day she was fainted in the backyard, someone put that knife in her right hand. I didn't notice it till now, he says. But by the time the model gets to the castle, the Reverend is killed, which I did not see coming. I thought at that time, wow, he really is the killer. Because a lot of times, the Reverend, there are a number of Gialli where the Reverend is the killer. And it doesn't necessarily, making them a religious person does not mean they're safe in Giallo. But his eyes weren't taken out either, so I'm thinking it did have more to do with the color of the eyes. And I think the photographer and the Reverend were killed more so out of being eyewitnesses. Ironically, they get the ones that see something get to keep their eyes, and the ones who are killed because of the eye color, they're the ones that lose it. But that's when she walks in on the killer killing the same girl that the Reverend was talking to, but the killer is Paulette. And she takes out her glass eye. She, seems like she's having a hard time carving out the girl's eye, so it just shows her like pulling it out. And just as she's about to put it up to her face, the model screams. There's a bit of a chase. And that's when Mark shows up. And the motive kind of reminded me of Torso with like some childhood trauma, which also before that, something that really reminded me of Torso was the door to this castle is locked and there's a key still in the keyhole. So the model's trying to reach through the hole to reach it, but she can't. So she takes her necklace, tries to loop it around the key, but the killer's already outside and fixes the necklace on the key for her. I was like, that's very reminiscent of trying to catch the key with the newspaper from Torso. And then the killer helps her. But Mark shows up, and again, childhood trauma. She says that when she was a little girl, she was playing doctor with one of her friends. Her eyeball got poked out. She was never punished, so she killed her. And whenever she saw her eyes, it drove her nuts. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Telltale Heart, because I guess whenever she saw someone with that color iris, it drove her nuts and she wanted those eyes. So, a little bit of Telltale Heart as well. But then she's about to come after him. She's shot. And then at the very, very end, he calls, or Alma calls him and says, I was in Barcelona, but, my passports and paperwork got messed up. So I came back and I stayed with my mother in Florida. Which, that's another reason why the police never believed him that it was her. Because they say, well, she might not be home, but maybe she took a vacation to Florida instead of here in Barcelona. Trying to say he's a liar. So they already knew that she was in Florida. Now, one thing, it was made clear, I missed it, but was the girl that was killed back home. I don't know if that was the girl that took her eye out when they were kids, or if that was the daughter of the person, or whatever. I don't know what the tie is. That might have been something I missed, but I mean, there's a lot more to this film than I'm saying, but it's been a while since I've reviewed a Giallo, so I'm a little rusty, so forgive me for that. But I thought this was a very good film. I thought it was going to be, because Paulette was the reason why she had the hotel room set up to look like Alma was there, was to incriminate Mark. She wanted to pretty much use him as a fall guy. I thought it was going to be because there's a talk earlier in the film about how he's going to divorce Alma so that he and Paulette can be together, and she seems okay with that. I thought it was going to be he was going to set up Alma to make her look crazy so she could be put away forever. They would have to go through a legal divorce, or at least, a normal divorce, and then he could be with Paulette. We've seen a number of Giallo like that. The first one that always comes to mind is Slaughter Hotel. But no, it was just Paulette with some childhood trauma, made it look like Alma was there to incriminate Mark because she wasn't there. Make it look like Mark was trying to blame, kind of a layered blame game. But when Alma finally calls him at the end, she says she agrees to the divorce. She doesn't want to continue ruining his life, but then he has a change of heart and is like, you know what? maybe we don't need to get divorced. Maybe we can work this out. But I thought this was a very solid Giallo. I loved the huge number of red herrings. I mean, everyone looked almost equally guilty. Some more than others, but everyone seemed guilty to a certain extent. I loved the sense of paranoia that everyone had. I liked the idea of all the deaths really being limited to this one tour group. Everyone who know. I actually thought it was like a church field trip or like a church vacation. Because they all know each other, and the Reverend was there. I guess it's just a tour group from this one town of Burlington. But I like the idea of it being a member of a tour group that's killing off its members. There were some interesting choices of like how when it's just the hands we see with the red gloves, we don't really see any of the stabbings or the gore, not much blood. But then when the killer dons the red poncho look, which I do like the look of that when the killer has that. Especially in some of the further away shots, kind of like Halloween. I think it has a creepy look to it. Similar to Alice, Sweet Alice, even though this was before then. But then that's when the killer gets kind of sloppy. It tries to kill the girl Jenny, but Jenny falls in the pool and screams, so the killer runs away. And then at the very end, when it kills that final girl, Paulette's not wearing the red poncho, and she finishes the kill, takes the eye out. I'm not sure what that was all about. I'm guessing, if I had to guess, it's because the red poncho hood, wearing it backwards, was obscuring her vision. I don't know. Maybe it's just because. Some things are just because. But I thought this was a very solid film. I really liked this Giallo. Did have, a nice little blend of American proto-slasher as well, which I enjoyed. And it's making me more excited to check out this set from Umberto Lenzi. And just another reason why he's become another one of my favorite, probably top 5 favorite Italian directors since I've been watching all these Italian films, for a second marathon. But I have more Gialli to get to. Again, if you have shopped off TrashPalace.com before, let me know how long it usually takes, what kind of experience you had, and yeah, when I get An Ideal Place to Kill and all the other ones I ordered off Trash Palace, there'll be another sort of mini Giallo marathon. But this is my 98th, so I'm about to break 100. So with that, stay tuned for those reviews, and thank you for watching.